I'm Philip Stoughton. I'm at Electronica 2024 on the IPC booth, and I'm joined by Sebastian Schaal from Luminovo. Sebastian, pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for coming over.
Thank you so much for having me.
You have a big exhibit here this time. It's a real kind of quantum leap over the last 2 years for Luminovo. You've really moved things forward. Tell me a little bit about the success that you've had since the last Electronica.
Yeah, so last Electronica was our first Electronica, so we also didn't know what really to expect. So we had like a small in-between booth, more like roll-ups, so the classic simple booths you could have. And at that point, we were already a little bit overwhelmed by how many people were there. We had people doing demos with the laptops in the hallway. And that was where we realized, okay, Electronica, 2 years, we probably need to really step up our game here. But then also from our customers, I think we have grown 4x in our customer counts, have started to now not just talk to the EMS, but also started to get traction in the OEM space. So basically everyone who's procuring electronics should ideally have interest in our service. So that was then clear for us, like we need something that's a bit bigger, that's more inviting, that really shows the people that our ambition is, to grow and be of service to the whole electronic supply chain.
Yeah, and I think it's important to have that visual signal to that. But what impressed me when I walked past the booth is partly the logos you have on the booth, the EMS companies that you're working with. We've seen announcements about a few strategic partnerships, but you really are penetrating the market well. And the other big quantum leap that we've seen recently is you kind of moving from maybe a niche solution and then maybe a product to something that feels much more like a platform now, and something that really allows us to leverage data and AI throughout the supply chain and potentially throughout the manufacturing process.
Yeah, no, I mean, for now, I think our idea was always that I think the EMS companies are kind of the unsung heroes of the supply chain. So they do a lot of the supply chain heavy lifting, but no one gives them credit for it. And also, I think little people build great software for them.
Yeah.
That's why we always said, like, we want to basically build something awesome for the EMS companies that can help them through their core business processes. That starts with quoting, but also then extends through like strategic sourcing, maybe supply chain management. And there, as you know, in Europe, I think we're working with like some of the top companies there.
Yeah.
And I think in the DACH region, we have now 8 of the top 10.
Wow.
So there really we got, I think, the logo grab well done. But now, as you said, also some of the big OEMs, many from sensor and tests, automotive, but also medical, are like leaning into this.
Are they typically OEMs that don't outsource?
It's a mix,
or
right?
They use it partly to manage.
We kind of have these like 4 different archetypes, right? Like only in-house, like make or buy, and then some that are like outsourcing, but then still doing the negotiations, the strategic sourcing parts themselves, and some that are just like doing everything with EMS. And there's bits and pieces for all of them, and that I think comes back to this idea of a software platform. So some people think platform means marketplace.
No.
It's not the case.
Absolutely not.
It's just a modular software architecture that allows you to kind of pick and choose the modules that really fit your core business.
Yeah.
Are you manufacturing or not? Are you sourcing yourself or not? To really do an a la carte selection and also add add-ons that you like, but also to be open access to allow you to build on top of this, right?
Yeah.
Platforms always be you can build on top. That's mostly connecting to your other business systems, to your workflows, but also launch as an EMS company like a white label collaboration portal to your customers that could benefit from those services. And that's, I think, the software architecture. But of course, below it is like a very well-architected industry data model. It really understands electronics as a first-class citizen, which allows them to build more and more automations on top. And that's, I think, the topic, the AI wave is coming, and there's, I think, different forms and shapes. Some we're already using, some we're very excited to tackle next year. But all below, you need like a good kind of platform that allows for these workflows to then flourish.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. When we first started to talk about AI, we were talking about it very much in terms of the manufacturing process itself, the huge amount of data that comes from the factory floor and the value it could add there. But what has become clear over the last couple of years is supply chain disruption is a bigger challenge than just manufacturing. And being able to have AI and digital transformation in the supply chain is probably the most valuable place you can have it right now.
Yeah, no, I think I always differentiate a little bit to the more analytical analysis use case and the kind of generative use cases. And then I think over time you had different technologies that allowed for different unlocks. And I think the time when we started talking, I always call them those more the engines, right? They have a very specific task and they work behind the scenes. And that was already a big unlock for both for the analytical side. That it was basically being an AOI inspection that you could make better with like self-learning systems, or for us like parsing very like shitty custom like supply chain data, being it customer bombs or offers from the market, and parsing it into that data model. I think now what we've seen with these like more the kind of co-pilot workflows, this kind of interactive mode that we know from the ChatGPTs of this world, has been a big unlock for the generative use cases. But I mean, supply chain is often not that creative, right? It's more analytical. So there, I think there was not a huge big unlock for now, but the next frontier of the co-pilots is like agents, where you have really systems that can autonomously not just be an engine where you do one task, but like do multiple rounds of like achieving a certain goal. And that again is, in my mind, a big unlock for both generative and analytical cases. It could be like a procurement agent that you task with. You can do 2 rounds of negotiation with this strategic goal, like do these 2 rounds. Or it could be like a customer agent that kind of like interacts with the customer, parses a request when it's not clear, goes back and forth. And that I think is like just things that you can imagine on top. First automating and then building these more autonomous systems on top, which is I think some people also make it scary, but I think generally if you architect well, an exciting future.
Yeah, no, absolutely an exciting future. And when I look at what we had in the last 2 years in terms of, I was genuinely surprised that we had repeated the mistakes of 2000 with overordering, big inventory overhang, those kinds of issues. We really struggled to predict demand. We really struggled to communicate demand from consumer through OEM, through EMS, to further down the supply chain. And if there's the ability to create some transparency through that process, but also some insight and some value through that process from the data, then I think that's very exciting. And it's a great opportunity for someone like Luminovo that seems to be able to understand the EMS industry, which isn't straightforward, but also understand the way AI can be applied to it. And to me, that's one of the key challenges of the coming year or two is how do we apply AI in manufacturing in a way that really adds value to everybody through the value chain.
And I think things you talk about, right? There are some things you can solve with like forecasting models, but forecasting is always like take it with a grain of salt, right? Because you can't predict the future, so it's always trying to find historic patterns that somehow will repeat again. But the big basis that you talked about is like how can we create a more transparent view where we kind of like people are starting to existing B2B connections are willing to share like what are my inventory levels of components and assemblies. Maybe me as an EMS, I can work with something like a vendor managed inventory that like I say, okay, look, I know your stock levels, I can produce to demand, and like these artificial hypes that are created that create these bullwhip effects are just like tampered down because everyone can gets nervous, then looks at data and says, hey, look, or it's just a small bump in the road. Calm down. And that's more data transparency topic. But of course, with having like smarter algorithms on top that can show you, okay, when is it really an out of the line action where you should take action, can really help to see through all these like millions of data points to just make ideally a very informed decision.
Yeah, and I think what's exciting is you go to that agentic model of AI, and actually you can question the AI and say, okay, we understand this is what you believe will happen, but if this happens, am I prepared? Will the supply chain flex and support me in that if the demand changes, or if the demand reduces massively and we see a big shift in, say, military demand or some other demand due to whatever geopolitical factors are out there.
The scenarios, you can really play with like scenarios and simulations that can help you like these are the outcomes that could be in the future, like, and what is the most likely scenario and what should be my strategy.
You're moving pretty fast now. You've moved fast over the last 2 years. If we kind of think forward just for fun to Electronica 2026, where would you like Luminovo to be at that point?
But I think ideally from the EMS business, we've then truly taken it global. So we already have customers from New Zealand to Silicon Valley, but actively we're mostly focusing on targeting Europe. But ideally, I would want the US companies as well as like the companies in Asia to really bet on us as the kind of new, ideally industry standard, where everyone can say, look, there's pieces in there for me, I should apply it. So I want to run as many products potentially on Luminovo. And then I think on the EMS and the OEM side as well, that we've found our way into as many strategic sourcing organizations that like leaders are really saying this is like how we can make sure that we can bring our products to life fast, cheap, and sustainably.
Yeah.
And our big, hairy, audacious goal of the company is always like, how many products can we touch? Yeah. So I love to then walk around and maybe go through the booths from the OEM side and say, okay, this is a product, this is a product. Exactly. We just touched it at some point in the supply chain, on the PCB side, on the component side, whatever. And ideally, then it's we can maybe double our booth size again, and it's Luminovo's going to be a household name, not just on the EMS side, but also on the OEM side.
Yeah, and I think we certainly have already started to see that in Europe. Seeing that globally will be really exciting. I think what's really interesting about the platform is it's a very ecosystemic approach, which I think is hugely important right now. But it's not just your modules that are on there. You have a partnership program with Sluicebox and various other companies where you can really add value in areas beyond those that you've got covered.
And that's exactly the other day of a platform, right? Like some people say you're only a platform if people start the collective revenue that's made from other companies on your platform is more than your own platform. That's like
it's an interesting
piece of it. But like ideally, yes, we want to be for innovative companies. We can't probably do everything on our own. Just provide like a distribution platform for, hey, I want to now add this new cool AI service for XYZ, but embedded in my workflows that Luminovo is my workflow all-in-one solution. And now I want to add carbon footprint. Now I want to add like this new component co-pilot. I want that, and that's exactly the other strategy. Get more and more partners on top, connecting the dots, and always like making it like a double opt-in, right? So like we do with the suppliers. Like if I say I open the gates of sending you the prices that you deserve, and I want those, then the prices are flowing. But like always make a double opt-in and see if people want to shake hands and connect to the supply chain, they can without like having to send emails and Excels across the world anymore.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense, and I think when you look at those modules, it's really attractive from those smaller companies to have a platform that can put them in front of all the OEMs and all the EMS companies that you're working with, and get them visibility and exposure there, and allow those companies just to try it on the Luminovo platform without having to install a new platform, without having to install new software. So it's fast adoption, which I think as we do go through this AI wave is going to be super important.
Yeah. And I think also the beauty of generally having like a cloud service offering that you can kind of tier is that you can, we don't want to just be something for the big guys, for the zoners of this world, but ideally, how can we build like a trimmed down version where we maybe have a little bit less customer support and so on, but it's still profitable for us to serve like the EMS with 5 million in revenue. Because they also need digitization desperately. And again, before it was just not possible with like on-premise installed software, but now it's just cheap to distribute. And we want to be a company for everyone, right? For the 3 million to the multi-billion. And that's why I think ideally every EMS that's forward-looking will run on Luminovo at some point, and same with the OEM guys.
Yeah, and it needs to be easy for them to install and fast adoption, which I think with the model you've got now they can do. Sebastian, great to see you again. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Look forward to stopping by the booth during the week. Thank you.
100%. Take care. Thank you.